Hello, hello. Chris,
Hello,
it's been
Anthony
so long.
Franco.
How are you?
I'm terrific. How do you
We
feel
we
about
got John back.
the?
Hey guys.
We didn't scare him away with our first episode with him.
The
John, it's good to see you, man.
Oh, it's great to see you. I loved last time. I'm looking forward to this. How you guys doing?
Anthony, how do you
Good.
feel about being the only haired man between two bald men in the street?
Um,
The-
You must feel pretty good, right?
the jokes that are coming into my head, I need to just set aside. So
Yes.
we'll just. I feels fine. Thank you, Chris.
yeah, I
I
won't.
just
I won't
got
do
out of
the-
the Shino Bolo at the bowling alleys.
John, welcome back. You were just such a terrific guest on How to Founder. We decided to have you back on this episode. It's for we typically in How to Founder we have a very specific topic, and on this one we just like to talk and kind of get a little wandering. We call it 5 questions, so I'll kick you off. But for the 2 people on the planet that either A, didn't watch the Super Bowl, which one of them's you, no, just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your backstory, talk a little bit about your project now, just give us a little bit of the color commentary on your journey.
Yeah, super. Yeah, I didn't watch the Super Bowl. My wife she scheduled a party yesterday for her German friends, and also they were all here. No one even knew there was a Super Bowl. So
it turns out Germans don't like football. I get it.
Yeah. To them, it's that ball where you kick the ball around the field and stuff.
They like football. They love football.
Just not
It's
football.
a different kind.
Right.
But go Philly. I lived in Philly for 2 years. That's where I went to grad school to Wharton. And, I'm a big cheesesteak fan. And I think
I like
so that was a good thing. And I'll watch. You know what I've been doing all year actually is just watching, quite frankly, honestly, is the highlights of all the games on YouTube after the games. They distill them down. A whole game takes like 12 minutes.
Yeah,
to
I think
watch.
it's
Just incredible. So so my journey, the arc of my journey has been from engineer and electrical engineer, and I actually started out in rock and roll recording studios. That's where I really, cut my teeth. I started working for a synthesizer company, ARP Instruments, that made those, the musical synthesizers like that Edgar Winter played on Frankenstein. And actually, one of the guys that I worked with, they came to ARP and he went to install this one for a movie. And when he was there, they said, well, why, since you know all about it, he was instructing them, why don't you play the thing in the movie? And that was, I don't know if you guys remember, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That guy, yeah, he was communicating with the UFO. That guy, I worked with him, and if I would have went, I could have been a movie star too.
You could have been like in one of the most iconic movies ever.
Yeah, right. Back when I even had hair, beautiful pompadour. But so that's why I started in I was really into music, obviously, and worked in recording studios with electronic music and synthesizers, and making records and stuff. And then from there, got involved in the broadcast industry. I was hired by ABC Television, worked there for 10 years, designing and building facilities for the network, and doing all the big broadcasts. Back then, it was Howard Cosell and the gang doing Monday Night Football, and I'd go on the road with them, or doing Olympics and political conventions, space shuttle launches, all that kind of stuff. Super fun. I was in my 20s. It was just a grand old time. But then I decided to go back to business school and learn about business. I had really no clue. I couldn't read financial statements, and I wanted to try to take my technical talents and maybe try to build stuff and sell it. And that was my idea. And so that's basically what I ended up doing was founding a bunch of companies. I probably found over a dozen, ended up taking, and then like everybody, some of the companies were abject failures, and some of them, went on to have a life of their own. And two of them I took public, so I had nice exits there. The exit strategy is either you get acquired, or you have to have a liquidity event where you can change your share of the company into actual cash money. And so either somebody acquires you, like Google or Meta or something, or you take the company public. And back in the day, I took two companies public and direct listings. I just found I didn't go in an IPO through investment banks, like have Morgan Stanley run it or something. I just went out, found some market makers, and then put in the documents with the SEC, and got a listing, got a trading number, and off we went to the races and started trading stock and creating liquidity that way. And so that was really fun and satisfying. And then, this was like in the mid 2000s, early 2000s, and to be able to but the companies were pre-revenue, right? So no revenue. But back then you could actually do that on the stock market and have a relatively good valuation. And the attractive parts of it were, one, liquidity. And so investors could come in, and the problem with investing in a startup is that, I do that now a lot. You put your money in, and you're lucky if you see your money back in 3, 5, 7 years. That whole time you can't touch that money. It's not like if you go to your Schwab account and buy 100 shares of Google, and then next month you decide you need that money for something else. You sell the shares, you get your money back. That type of liquidity doesn't happen in a startup. Now there's a thing called secondary markets where you can go and they actually trade. You can buy SpaceX shares or other shares, so that some of the early people in the company can actually turn some of their stock certificates into money, so they can go buy a house or a car, put their kid through college or whatever they need the money for. But it's challenging, but so having liquidity was an advantage, and also the stock market is basically a price mechanism, a price discovery mechanism. Where, because it's an auction that's going on all the time. There's a bid and ask price, and people are saying, and then you settle, and that's the price of the stock, and it goes up and down all day long, right? There's the price varies. And so that price discovery mechanism gives you a pretty accurate way of valuing your company. Because how else do you do it? You say, well, I'll sell 20% of my company for $10 million. Okay, that means you have a $50 million valuation, but you just pulled that number out of thin air. It's like, well, 40 million seemed too little, and 60 million seemed too high. Whatever you're going to say, there's no real mechanism for what a objective mechanism for that pricing. So those two things made it good to go public. The problems were then, Sarbanes-Oxley laws came in. There was companies like Enron and WorldCom that were defrauding their shareholders, and all of a sudden it's like, we got to have stricter rules with the SEC.
Those were the good old days, Anthony. We just missed it. We were,
they were the good old days.
Gotten in, we could have Enron the shit, the heck out of this deal.
That's right. The shizzle out of everything, Enron the shizzle out of it. Yeah. And so they came, because the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, their big thing is to provide confidence in the markets, that the markets aren't, gamed and you're being defrauded. So they take that very seriously, and so they put in new laws and restrictions and reporting requirements for companies to be more transparent and accurate in what they were reporting in their financial statements and what they said they were doing. Like WorldCom was booking sales on just a whiff of a sale, and they'd have all these revenues. And
I really just
mirage.
I did the same thing with my startup, John, but it turns out that booking sales and cash are two different things. Like checking account balance was, but on paper, totally. I was super rich for an hour or two as I was.
That feels good, right? Yeah, but cash flow, the cash flow statement, right? Where you take the
right. What is this
how much is actually cash money getting in that bank account, not just the revenue, the income number and stuff. Yeah.
So after you've done the public company stuff, you've done some other stuff, but really. And now you've kind of created this mechanism where even lay people like Anthony and I can learn about business.
Yeah, from that, and those experiences, and then I taught in some universities and all, and wanted to make that kind of teaching more practical and more boiled down to, so even you two guys could maybe understand it and stuff.
I mean, I wouldn't count on it, but yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so MBA ASAP, as soon as possible, MBA kind of knowledge so that people can really understand business and thinking about a skill stack. Like whatever else you're doing, some business skills can really be beneficial. And I've been thinking lately about, things are changing so fast in our life now. I mean, accelerated change. What's going on with artificial intelligence. All of a sudden, this deep seek comes out, and everybody's wigging out, and things are getting faster. And so we try to think about what the world's going to be like in 5 years, so we can plan what skill sets we should have so we'll be more valuable. And we're chasing all of these things that may or may not happen. Instead of doing that, I've been think about what never changes and concentrate on that as part of your skill set. And one of the things that doesn't change are business skills, right? Accounting is going to be the same. The money that comes in, your expenses, and then you have the net income. Those kind of ideas are going to remain the same. So having skills in your skill stack that are going to remain constant is a good way to stay adaptable and survive and thrive in the future, no matter what else happens with, we're bowing down to our artificial intelligence overlords, or the robots, take over, or whatever.
So we may need to do a Turing test on Anthony. He may be a digital twin. We're not even sure.
Put the Turing test. Oh, the Turing test. Yeah. There you go. Wow. Yeah.
And Anthony,
Alan Turing.
I don't see how AI is going to get me to do anything. My wife can't get me to do anything. Like I don't buy it at all.
Oh, terrific. All right, John, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask 5 questions. We're going to go through, and I want you to reflect on these. We'll kind of jump in. I'll redirect from time to time. But the first one is one of my all-time favorite questions, which is, I believe, Anthony, you got this maybe from Y Combinator, maybe? Anyway, what is an unexpected belief that you hold dear as a founder, which most people might find strange or counterintuitive?
Well, I like to dress in a tutu every morning.
It's a little counterintuitive, but but it works.
It works.
But John feels pretty, and that's all that matters.
That's right. That's all that matters. Right. But and Y Combinator. I took MBA ASAP through Y Combinator, and that's a great program. Back when the OpenAI guy was running it, and that's a really great program. And and this question is kind of like Peter Thiel too, the PayPal mafia guy, and the guy behind
and our sworn enemy, John. Yeah, our sworn enemy.
Peter Thiel is How to Founder's sworn enemy.
Yeah, because he's like, why would you start a company unless it can dominate a market? We're like, well, I just want to start a company that makes money like that.
Just for fun. Yeah, exactly. And exactly, you don't have to do that. But he always asks, one of his questions, I think, is that, what is something that's counterintuitive that people, and I would say, founding and being a founder and going into what they call founder mode, where you work like crazy, sort of like, Elon Musk, who's another one of those guys, but, that just going to work beast mode, you're going to work 120 hours a week and just crush it. I think working less can actually be better and more productive. And especially if you try to work smarter and you have time to allow yourself to recover and recuperate. So I think there's diminishing returns. You're sitting around doing stuff for 5, 6, 8 hours. When you start to get into 10, 12 hours, you're really just, not working at your optimal, pace and things. So to take time, do something else, and let yourself refresh, I think is really important. The guy, Stephen Covey, who wrote that 7 Habits of Effective People book, which I always loved that book. It's way back when, but he said, one of the things is you have to have a balance of productivity and productive capacity. And to keep your productive capacity up, you got to rest. You got to have good nutrition. You got to have sleep, all these kind of things, and so I think that you can really, especially nowadays with the tools we have, we can leverage them to work smarter instead of just longer, and not brute force our way through and burn out or risk burning out, so that we can be there. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? And so we have to be as clear headed and creative as we can be. And, what do they say? After 8 hours, if you don't have good sleep, you diminish your cognitive capacities by 5-10% and stuff. And that's a real, that reduces, that dulls your edge, So I would say, work less.
I haven't slept 8 hours in years, and this is a result. And so,
yeah, the poster child of.
It helps if you tell everybody that you're 24 years old, Chris.
That's right. That's what I am. Hey, I want to press on this point just a little bit, John, and I'm going to ask you first, Anthony, and then I want your reaction, John, which is and we've talked about this concept in the startup world. Some people will call it hustle porn, about how hard I'm working and I just have to go and do that. There's these two counter ideas. And the first one is, when John, I don't know if I've told you or bragged nearly enough about it, but I used to do Ironman. So I would be training for an Ironman, and it's so incredibly time.
Oh God.
But I was so much sharper when I had this limited amount of time, because the scarcity of time actually made me more intentional with the time. So that's on one side. But Anthony, this other thing is that there's an infinite amount of tasks that need to be done. It requires some sort of discipline there, I think. And almost no founder gets that early, I don't think. At least I didn't get it early.
Gets what early?
This notion that you have to be disciplined about turning your computer off. Like, you have to stop. And yes, that thing is gonna have to wait till tomorrow morning.
Yeah, you're valuing if you're working through the fact that you can't think, you're valuing the process over the product. Mm-hmm. Like you're valuing the work. Like, look at how hard I'm working. It's almost like a vanity metric at that point. So I shouldn't say nobody. Maybe only one person that I can think of on the planet can run 6 companies and make the government more efficient.
That's debatable, but yes. Debatable. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Right.
But everybody else is they're not alien. So you have to listen to your body and rest. It's fine if you want to do a couple of all-nighters. You just can't do that nonstop. That is physically impossible, and you will burn out, and it'll all be for nothing anyway.
Right.
John, I feel like it's fear. I feel like you're so afraid of failure that it's this drive about fear, which is, it also adds the level of stress, and it adds to your, not being able to sleep and all that sort of stuff. Did I get it right, or you think it's something different?
No, I think you're absolutely right, Chris. Those are all excellent points, and I totally agree with you. Yeah, there's so much to do, and you want to do it all right away, and you don't want to stop until it's all done. But when you look at how big these tasks that you're going to do, they're going to take, months or something, and so you have to come up with some kind of cadence that. Where you don't just run so fast that you burn out. And Chris, like you were saying about the Ironman, I think that's another thing too, is to have something complete physical, maybe, and completely different than the mental, cognitive, world of startup, where you're all in your head and everything. But to do something physical can refresh your mental capacities to, even though it's exhausting in its own right, it's exhausting in a different way that actually can recharge your batteries on the other side. So.
Sometimes the closest path to an answer is from walking away from the problem for a little bit.
Absolutely. Sometimes I get my best things, like, after a good night's sleep, gosh, everything seems more clear. Yeah. Or even in the shower or something, all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, that's the thing, when you step away from trying to figure out the problem, you can't force it. You can't force creativity. Willpower does not create a creative solution. You can't say, I'm going to really flex here and get creative. It doesn't work.
Anthony lies to people and says he plays tennis because he has no other hobbies other than founding companies. And so
I have found, to John's point, that taking showers has really dramatically improved my life.
There you go, in many ways, right?
I'm just going to say that your social standing has increased a little
It's
bit. As well.
Dramatically.
Amazing.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that whole European showering thing wasn't working.
No, forget it.
It was not. That's great. All right, John. Question
That's
number
my
two.
my wife always says, like, why are they, is a to dish somebody, you call them a douche, it's like douching in Europe, that's washing, oh, what, that person's a wash, washing. It's like, I don't get it.
Oh my God! It's the first time somebody's brought up the douche. I mean, John.
Sorry, guys.
But no, I mean,
Reminds me
people
of the
called
Saturday Night
Anthony
Live
douche
skit.
for years, but we didn't
Yeah.
know why until now. That's great. All right, question number two. The ideal company culture was a single person sitting at a bar. How would you describe them, and what would they be drinking?
They'd be drinking an appletini.
Appletini, very, very sophisticated.
No, they'd be a confident person that is sort of a balance between ambition and casualness, and probably drinking an old fashioned something, just really, solid type of no nonsense drink.
They're drinking an appletini, ironically, is what you're saying.
Drinking appletini, ironically,
Laughing at themselves.
and laughing at themselves, yeah,
Right.
tossing it over their shoulder.
Right. I think that's incredible. John, tell me about the best company culture that you've ever either A, worked in, or probably B, more likely created. Describe that, and describe what you did to try to keep and maintain that.
Wow, and I've been on both sides of it. I've been on company cultures that I started and tried to get great people, and they didn't fit culturally together, and it was like just terrible. I had one company, and it was a great company. We were making a product we were looking at all the different foods that came into the United States, right? And these foods, you don't when foods come in, they're not checked for safety and stuff. I don't know if maybe I need to.
I was just thinking that we were talking about Close Encounters. Like maybe you were getting beamed up. Like you're like,
Take me back to mothership.
I'm in the mothership. Yeah.
But I had these great guys working for me, and we were the FDA and stuff doesn't check for food safety. Food comes in, and the only thing that they're required to do at the supermarket is to tell you whether or not, what country of origin. But they don't tell you if the food is relatively safe or not. And there's a lot of things that happen in food that are less than safe. And so we had this company that was doing open source intelligence around the world, looking for where food was being produced, and then see what type of safety hazards there were. And it was really a great, and then putting that into an app, and people could go and, do the barcode and then see relatively, are the tomatoes from Uruguay, safer or less safe from the tomatoes from Mexico, say, and things like that. Thought it was a great thing. And the guy that was my operations guy is brilliant. Military guy, came out of the intelligence field, was an open source intelligence guru, one of the top in the nation. But very sort of conservative, right-wing kind of guy. Then my marketing guy, another absolutely brilliant marketer, advertising, all that, but very liberal and creative and stuff like that. These guys just butted heads all the time and I'm trying to keep it together long enough to make a payday, out of this thing. And just couldn't do it. Finally, the marketing guy just walked away because it was just too much. But so company culture is really, really important, and having people that actually can work together and sort of be on the same page is absolutely critical. And I've had other companies where, the guy Warren Bennis, he's a great management leadership guru guy, said that there's two kinds of companies you can make. There's two types of leaders: one that actually sings and dances, and the other that creates a space where others can sing and dance. And I try to take that type of approach, where try to create an environment where other people can flourish, and interact. And to me, that's one of the best things about being a manager leader, is to take people and give them enough responsibilities where they're a little bit above where they think they're capable, and watch them grow in confidence, and then take on more tasks and understand that, wow, I can really do this, and move on. And to see people blossom like that under your tutelage, that I think that's one of the greatest parts about being an entrepreneur, is really to be able to grow a team and develop individual talent. It's like a football team or something, where you actually have to have all these people playing together. There's something magical about that when you see, like in the Super Bowl, right? These teams that, they're all playing, they're peaking at the right time, and everybody's playing together, and they're following the plan, and it's working. That kind of stuff, I think, just company culture is just huge.
Anthony,
I just want to point out how impressed I am with you, Chris, for one, not getting up and dancing when John suggested.
We're singing.
And two,
let's see your moves, man.
You didn't even crack a smile, nonetheless giggle when he said tutelage. I'm just very happy with you, Chris.
Anthony.
You're so professional. You're professional.
It is
dance the
professionalism.
So, Anthony, here's my question. And this is, I'm going to just take what you said, John, and I'm going to rephrase it for a second. If
leave out the word tutelage
said that they were servant leaders, were actually servant leaders, people would be like, we would have a great freaking society. Like, there'd be a bunch of humble people giving around that genuinely wanted to see other people grow, and really genuinely wanted to see other people like win and move on and grow out of their current roles and things like that. In your experience, Anthony, how many people that say they're servant leaders actually are, and are they just pretending so they can put servant leader on their LinkedIn profile?
Like cosplaying, yeah.
That's cosplay, right?
Yeah, but are they cardboard cutouts of servant leaders, or are they actually servant leaders?
All the servant leader buzzwords.
Look, I think if you say it, I think you fundamentally believe it. So who am I to say, good for them if they believe that that's a goal. At least it's a goal. At least they value the fact that servant leadership is a thing. Give them credit for that. So I know a lot of leaders that think it's foolish to be a servant leader. They're here to do what I tell them to do. So at least their head's in the right spot, right?
Right.
You look at guys like
behind this, John, is scarcity. It's a scarcity mindset where you're saying what you want to do as a culture is create a culture whereby the managers and people and employees of that truly feel empowered to help each other grow and thrive. And that almost by definition means that if I work incredibly hard and develop, an employee or develop this thing, and then it's going to go and it's going to leave.
Right.
And I need to be happy about that. And my life's going to be harder because I just developed a human being that's now going to go be a higher paying job that I could probably, I didn't have the seat for or her, right? Like, so that becomes this concept of scarcity. And that's a base psychological principle, John. It's so hard to overcome that.
Right. I think we all, right. We're scared that people will move on, and then we're going to lose that part. And so we want to keep them within our control and all. And it does come from a fear and a scarcity of talent, or your ability to develop it. And I forget the guy's name now, but he has developed lots of people, and he's always encouraging them to go on, and they move on. And the fella that is now running Uber was one of his proteges, and I remember him saying that he always encouraged me to move on, and I always thought that was really great. That's the great. You have to sort of like free Willy, go Willy, go with all here. Yeah, you have to be able to let them leave the nest and all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing in relationships, right? People want to be controlling and control their mates and all that kind of stuff too. And it's a challenge to be open.
Pretty controlling of me, John. He's
I know. And he's got you on a short leash.
Exactly. All right. Question number 3. Imagine your core leadership talent is a superhero. Which superhero is it and why?
It would be, well, because of my hairdo, I think Dr. X from the X-Men, the guy in the wheelchair.
Xavier.
Well
Xavier.
played. Well played.
Well played. Yeah, because he could read people's minds and stuff too, and like make them do things that that he wanted them to do, and not allow them to grow or dance, but dance to his tune.
He could literally make them dance.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
Dance to my tutelage.
That's right. Dance, you people. All right. So in that line, what is your superpower as a leader? What is the thing that you think is your strongest asset, Dr. X?
Well, my sense of humor, I would have to say, it's my,
I think it's I
think
That was,
one of them is
Chris
that
and I are like nodding like you were seriously saying that. He's like, that was a joke. That was a joke.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Yeah.
I'm trying to be funny here. You guys, it's a tough room. It's a tough room here.
I like the idea of saying like, I think it's my humility and my incredible, but my humility and my intelligence.
My greatest fault is that I try too hard and I care too much. No, but I'd like to think that to try to my superpower is to try to have the empathy, maybe to try to figure out what are problems that people encounter, including myself, that then I want to try to solve in some way. And that's sort of, I think, maybe the basis of entrepreneurship too. You want to try to help people by, there's two ways really that a business can be, right? A startup or something is either you're fixing a pain point or you're adding delight in some way. Those are the two things. And most of my stuff has been on trying to fix pain points, than trying to give delight. But I mean, that's another way that you could really make a company and stuff like that. So it's trying to think about what the heck is something that bothers people that I can maybe feasibly eliminate.
Anthony, would you say your biggest problem is humility? Is that?
No, it's that so John's is like, John said it's that he likes to fix what bothers people. I just like to bother people.
There you go. I'll follow you around and I'll make a business out of fixing things in your way.
The real question I want to ask you, Anthony, is it do you think it's maybe because what you just said, John, is spot on? And is it possible to be a successful entrepreneur unless you have some sense of empathy in the problem that you're trying to solve? We always say that the best founders are people that are just solving the problem that they have. But is it that idea, or is it that idea that I can actually feel other people's problems?
I think, Chris, we try to define founder, what makes a successful founder. There is no such thing. There's no trait that there's just no way of saying.
Well, John, that's the last episode we're having.
No,
okay.
There's no trait. There's no like fundamental trait. Well,
I guess what are we doing here, Anthony?
No, I mean, you're asking me sense of empathy. How many founders do you know that are narcissists and incredibly successful?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, others are incredibly empathetic and incredibly successful. So I don't think that's one of the things that you can pull on to say whether or not you're going to be a successful founder or not.
I agree.
I would say, John, though, that you're not going to be a good leader without a level. Agree or disagree?
Well, yeah, and you look at people. There's so many traits in our society, I think, that are antisocial and that actually get rewarded because those people, if they're narcissists, if they have hard drive, whatever, they bubble to the top too. And sometimes that can be frustrating to see. These people that they're just miserable people, but somehow they have a skill, other skills that allow them to thrive and end up on top, even if it's their cutthroat backstabbing and experts in palace intrigue, that works to their benefit, unfortunately.
All right. Question number 4. What's one piece of common wisdom in entrepreneurship that you believe is completely overrated, and why?
Well, let me see here. I wrote down a couple things here, and okay. Follow your passion. I think that
I just think it's a terrible life idea too.
I think people say that, but is that really the basis for creating a company and stuff like that? I mean, you could have your passion. Really, what it comes down to is filling some need of some customer base. And if you're, it's like that Venn diagrams that you see that overlap for like concepts like ikigai, the Japanese concept where it's your passion or what you're interested in, and then also where what is a need in a market, and how you can solve that need. And so I think that people put too much emphasis on just follow your passion. You can follow your passion and start a company and just follow your passion for years and years and not make a dime. But you might have fun at it. But
it's funny because this is on a different tact in my life. I had a debate the other day about triple bottom line companies. And we, in Colorado particularly, we're starting to see these companies that are truly scalable, wonderful companies that are starting to really get funding from all different areas. But
nice.
Impact companies for the longest time were wonderful as far as what they were trying to do, but were crappy companies.
Right. B Corps.
They didn't have a market. They didn't have customers. And people are like, why isn't there more funding going to impact companies? And the simple answer was because there's not enough good impact.
Right.
I have a quick story on that. So the best answer I've ever heard was from a good friend, Rob Wilson from OneReach. He was asked by an investor, would you rather be rich? Would you rather make a lot of money or have impact? Which is a common investor question. I hate the question because every founder's like, well, I want to have both. And so everybody answers that. And then the investor says, no. You have to choose one. And Rob, without missing a beat, he said, money. Because what kind of an impact am I having if somebody's not willing to open their wallet to help me, to have me do it? I thought it was a brilliant answer. It's like both, but if I have to choose one, it's money. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your answer. Steal your time, great, John, but
no, that's a great. It's a measure of impact, right? I mean, basically, it's the money, revenue.
Yeah. There's this idea, and it's pervasive amongst the generation of college students that I'm teaching, which is the job that you have to get it's important for that to fulfill every bit of a vast soul and purpose in your life. And founders of this generation that are coming up believe that every company that needs to be started is not only going to be a great company that solves a problem on behalf of their customers, but also needs to fulfill every bit of the soul and passion of those employees. I think that's dumb. There's a lot of other places where you can feel impactful, John. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of going back to the first question about not working too much, to have outside interests, to have other interests that are going to fulfill those different parts of you, and encourage that in your employees too, and not expect them to just be monomaniacal about work and have no outside interests or anything else that can satisfy them. I mean, there's so many. I mean, what's the purpose of even certainly helping people and being successful and all, but also to enjoy life means enjoying literature and music and dance and art, whatever,
and singing.
And singing. Yeah.
This is
Chris is enjoying right now.
Portion of the show.
Yeah. This is the intermission. This is the halftime show.
I'm a winter storm, Anthony. Look at me blow.
Interpretive dance. Perfect. Yeah.
So
I think
not everybody follows their passion when it comes to business, because otherwise there would be no rotor-rooter, right? Like
absolutely. Whose passion is that? You're right. That's perfect point.
Yeah.
Perfect point.
I do think I think it's a narrative that is just so incredibly dangerous. That just follow your passion. I think it's
a great.
It's too trite. Yeah. It's too trite and too simplistic. Maybe you want to have some of that in there. You want to be passionate about what you say. If you're going to be a leader, communicate, you have to have passion in what the vision is that you're going to want people to follow. but it's not your only passion. How many times do people take something that they really, really love and they love doing, and they try to turn it into a business, and all of a sudden that 9 to 5 grind or whatever takes all the juice out of it for them, you know?
And the reality is that almost every founder I know that starts a company, whether or not that company, whatever that company does, it becomes their passion.
Yeah.
You know, when I sold my company a little over a year ago right now, it was so hard to walk away. It was so hard, even though it was the right time and I knew it was the right time for me and all those sorts of things. Like, it was still incredibly difficult, and the people and the humans and the work, it became a passion. And I do think that's the piece that we miss, which is the people can be the passion, not necessarily the project. All right, last question, John. Are you ready?
Point. That's a great point.
If you had to start a business from scratch right now with only $1,000 and no social following, or like Anthony and I, a negative social following, we're actually in social following debt. It's weird. It's a little known fact of social media. We actually owe more
negative
followers. We have negative social followers. Didn't think it was possible, but we figured it out. All right. What would you start and why?
Well, I think I would, go to one of those sports book things and do a double parlay with a grand.
Terrific idea. That's it for today's episode, everybody. JohnSportsGambling.com.
Go big or go home. That's
It's risky, but
yeah, I think it's a great idea.
No, I would definitely start something online and put that money towards. There's so many tools now that are relatively inexpensive that you can use online. Create a website, start rent out get even a lot of it, get an email list going. Get a top of funnel kind of thing happening into an email list and start to cultivate customers, and just make something, the minimal viable product kind of idea online, and test if people are interested in it, and really take it from there. Sell something that's a digital download, digital first kind of thing. So there's no money tied up in inventory or working capital, and really just, and try to conserve as much of that money as you can, so that when you actually hit upon something that's kind of starting to work, you have some dry powder to allocate towards doubling down on that concept and growing it and nurturing it. But yeah, I mean, I think you could start with a couple of, I would start with some social media accounts, MailChimp or one of those email programs. You can get up to 2,000 subscribers for free, and create a website or a landing page kind of thing, something very simple, and take it from there. Test, experiment, just run a bunch of experiments, a bunch of messaging experiments.
Anthony, this is the question that we've asked 5 founders, but I'm not going to ask you what company you would start. What would be the first thing that you would do to decide what company you would start? So I'm going to take it down a level for you. Like, how would you make that decision? Occasionally ask a good question, John. It's rare.
That's
every once in a while.
That's really good. I would try to start. I would think about what can I do for $100, not $1,000. So I would think about starting 10 $100 companies, not $1,000 company.
That's a great idea. A portfolio like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but and then use whatever, and then take the one that turns 100 into 2.
That's a great idea. That's a really good way to look at it.
I have a follow-up question for you, John, and then I'll pose the same question to you, Anthony, which is, we as founders, the $1,000 question is a terrific one, right? Because it implies the fact you have almost no resources available and you have to do it. And we typically, when we start companies, we start with the idea of resources. Like, what are the resources we have available for us? And so by asking the question that way, it asks you to immediately start with very limited resources. But there's this other concept that founders, that we tend to ignore, which is the most valuable resource that a founder has is their time and attention. And so Do you, John, as you're thinking about a company, do you create the balance sheet of your time that you want to apply to this? Because in the reality is for you, John, your time is worth more than $1,000. If you're going to spend weeks on a project, it's worth more than what you're going to just immediately throw into whether cash cap.
That's a great point. And people, I don't think value their time appropriately. You see like Black Friday sales, right? And people sit out all night long to get $100 off of a flat screen TV or something when they spent 8 hours in line. And if you start to value the value of your time in dollars, suddenly none of those deals make any sense. So yes, absolutely. And it's all about focus in a way too. Our time is our most valuable resource. We cannot recoup that. That is the thing that we have. It is a scarce resource. And to try to focus on, focus isn't just, discipline in one thing, but it's saying no to 1,000 other kind of really good ideas that come along while you're going to try to work on one thing. So absolutely, I think you have to think about how much time it's going to take. What are the resources that you have that are scarce, your time and effort and interest, and is this the most optimal place to put them? Is this the best use of highest and best use of your time?
Lovingly, we're terrible at this. Both of us are. Like, we love getting excited about projects. Like, but it's an important conversation. How do you think about
it? Are you asking me, Chris?
Yes, Anthony.
Wake up.
Sorry, I was spending time. I was actually sending an email. On my phone.
I was honestly, I was looking at show notes and completely did not hear the question, Chris.
Oh God!
It was something about starting a risque OnlyFans thing.
All right, Chris, ask me again. You have my attention.
Well, the funny irony is that we're talking about attention, Anthony, which is so. The idea is that the amount of time and attention you give a project is valuable as a founder, but we tend to ignore that.
Right.
We tend to just say whatever is interesting us, so we'll go chase 5 ideas at the same time and wear ourselves out and not ever give an actual true accounting to where we should be spending our time. Is that, for me at least, that feels what I do. Is that what you do or no?
So I can get caught there. The thing that snaps me out of it is if I pretend, quote, pretend that I have no money in the bank. If I pretend I have no money in the bank and I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids next week, it really helps to crystallize what I should be spending my time on.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, it's like, all right, I'm not going to do this.
I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go do the thing that's going to.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, John, we're going to do a speed round. It's going to be relatively quick, but this is just broad questions for you as a founder. Anthony, you're going to do it, or do you want to not do it?
Yeah, here we go. You ready?
Okay.
Ready.
It's getting better.
I'm just going to go ahead and say
cool.
that anybody currently listening is in the northern Colorado area, maybe bring an espresso over to Anthony. It's like
a little slow today.
a little slow this morning.
Not that strong a swimmer.
I don't swim. All right, John, speed round, bootstrapped or funded at this point in your life? What would you do?
Bootstrap. I want to keep all the equity for myself. I don't want to have investors.
Move fast and break things, or careful, methodical approach?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, yeah, the move fast and break things was the Facebook model for a while. And I think that, move fast and be methodical, but move fast and break things is probably the way, fast experiments, fail forward. I think that's the way to go, ready, fire, aim kind of thing.
Also, Facebook's motto became move fast and break things on a stable infrastructure, which was
right. Exactly. They changed it. Yeah.
after when they added on a stable infrastructure component.
Yep.
Data-driven or gut feeling? You as a founder, what do you rely on most?
Initially, gut feeling until can get some data, and then try to be data-driven and make data informed decisions. Yeah.
Product first or brand first? What should we think about building first?
That's a good one too. Gosh, I love brands and I love developing brands, but I think product first, and then the brand sort of follows the product.
Anthony just shuddered a little bit because he's like, brand has to come first. Long-term vision. I'm shooting for 5 years. Going to keep focus on that long-term vision. Or I got to move fast. Short-term wins. That's all I care about. Which is most important?
Well, I think long-term vision is really important, but there's no long-term without short-term. So I like what you said, Anthony, about, if I don't have any money in the bank, how am I going to, that Dr. Johnson said, that the prospect of being hung in a fortnight really clarifies a guy's mind, and that kind of thing,
What a great quote.
That is a terrific quote.
It's like if you know right now I got to make money, what do I have to do? It helps you to prioritize. So
I think it's a great one, John. You have been incredibly gracious with your time and hanging out with our tomfoolery, and frankly,
love you guys.
Three-quarters of attention. Okay, yeah. maybe. We're lucky, we got that. Where can we find more information about you? Where can we connect? Learn, get a little bit more wisdom, and maybe get an MBA now.
Thanks, Chris. That's a great question. The best place to reach me and things is my website, mba-asap.com. And from there, my course is on there, and also a link to get a free ebook that I put out in 4 emails. And from there, you get on my email list, and anybody emails me, I answer all the emails and stuff. And I'm also on all social media, but that's the best place to get a hold of me. So I really appreciate it, guys.
Beautiful. John, thank you again so much for joining us. It's been really fun. I'm so glad you came back. And because when we had that first conversation, it was a terrific episode, but we just was like to get to know you a little bit more. So I think that's what these purposes are.
I love it.
What do we have coming up? What are we asking for here?
So tomorrow we're going to be talking about competition, when to look at competition and when to ignore them. I do want to do a plug for next Monday. We have a really cool episode where we have a couple of product entrepreneurs that are going to talk to me about how to get on Shark Tank. So come to howtofounder.com, click the LinkedIn. And if you have a product you just want to talk about on a podcast and figure out how to get on Shark Tank, that'll be a good way to do it. And after that, we're going to talk about dancing. I'm very excited about that. Everybody, thank you so much for listening, John. It's always great to see you.
Anthony
and Chris really loved it.
2 episodes and just listen next week.
All right. See you guys. See you later.
Hey.